Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest weather watch. Today is January 11th, and right now we are looking at the infrared satellite imagery. You got BC, Washington, Oregon, Idaho up here to the upper right, Hawaiian Islands bottom left, Pacific Ocean is here. Check out this mid-latitude cyclone moving in towards the south coast of Alaska as we speak, tracking right near Anchorage. And you can see not much left over for us here in the Pacific Northwest. And the storm track's going to kind of be dogging the west coast of North America here for a while. But on the flip side of that, we are going to have some Arctic air that's going to try to slide down here across some of Western Canada. We're going to take a look at the latest on that. The models have been waffling back and forth on just how much of that cold air is going to make its way back down into the Pacific Northwest. We'll take a look at the latest on that as we go through the video this morning. Take a look at the visible. Check it out. There is some sunshine out there for some portions of eastern Washington, Oregon, some of the coastal areas, western Washington hit and miss. Look at Vancouver Island, largely clear this morning also, and much more cloudy here across Idaho and Montana. Still some showers ongoing from that system kind of sliding through yesterday. Just light stuff, kind of wrapping things up here over the next day or so. And you can see the high clouds here out across the Pacific Ocean. So the climate.gov site here is mentioning that La Nina is here, and it may be difficult to finally classify this as a La Nina once things are all said and done. But right now, we do have the cooler water there across the equatorial Pacific. Bit of a Modoki La Nina where the water is centered over the 3.4 region. Usually in the big La Ninas, you have much more cooler water here that continues to upwell off the coast of South America. So, it is on the weaker side here, but, technically we are in La Nina conditions right now. You can see the flow chart if you want to break things down or whatnot. Again, climate.gov has a lot of good information there. So if you want to check out a home weather station that I highly recommend, the Tempest Weather System is great. It's got a great smartphone app. I've got it installed on the top of my pole here. I can't wait for a windstorm so I can compare some of the wind speeds here to my Davis 3 Cup, which I officially measure my wind measurements on. And as of today, I think the Davis collected 10 miles per hour, and let's see, ultrasonic had 11, the Davis had 10 there. So yeah, pretty good so far. Now, taking a look here, Missoula National Weather Service is on to this Arctic air moving down. Look at this, January 18th through 23rd. But you notice the chances once you get out towards the Rocky Mountains and east are definitely much higher. Some of that may try to be leaking out into portions of the Pacific Northwest. And then you have these random weather model runs that continue to show better amounts of that Arctic air, even getting a bit further out west than that. So we have some work to do over the next few days, but I will show you the latest here in a moment, so stay tuned. First things first, let's take a look at the showers kind of as we go through tonight. You can see pushing off to the east there. Not much in the way of precipitation for Seattle or Portland or anything of that nature here as we dry out a bit here over the next few days. This goes through Monday afternoon. Now, if we take a look at the European model, this is hot off the presses, 12Z. So we're going to let this run out a bit here. You can see showers rapid up. System continues to push off to the east. Storm track pointed north towards southeast Alaska, Haida Gwaii. This one stays generally north of Vancouver Island. Deeper low moves into western BC, kind of clips us with this system there. And that's the initial stages of the Arctic air. You can see some of this snow flying across some of British Columbia, Alberta, the Rocky Mountains as this Arctic air starts to push down east, and you see that we don't get much precipitation. We're not dealing with Arctic air spilling off of the British Columbia coastline here and developing some troughing and bringing some of that precipitation back into the region. So it's looking more and more like we're not going to get any kind of snow event with that initial chance of some Arctic air moving down in here. Then we look off through the extended and still not much in the way of systems until you go 312 hours out. And that's where we are right about now. Now, I'll show you the problem with that here in a moment because last night's European model run was showing something a little bit different. And if you take a look here at the artificial intelligence, the 06Z run, 5,000 feet, we're going to take a look at the track of that Arctic air here. And the European artificial intelligence has been a little more bullish on bringing some of that cooler air a bit further west. But here we go with the pattern change. You can see the Arctic air largely staying east of the Rockies, but you see some of that does spill out into central BC and even gets into eastern Washington, Oregon, would bring some cooler than normal temperatures for Seattle and Portland. But again, we're not dealing with that cyclogenesis. It would not be generating precipitation amounts in the form of snow into the lower elevations, but it would leak some colder air out. You'd have relatively clear skies for a lot of the times here and some chilly overnight lows. But look at this Arctic air mass just blasting down across even portions of the Intermountain West, all the way down into Texas and even into portions of Mexico and spilling out over the Gulf of Mexico. And yeah, so a pretty interesting Arctic air mass there. And then it shows another chance of some Arctic air here way off through the extended forecast, barely even worth mentioning at this point, because models have been showing this at times and kind of backing off and waffling back and forth. So if we look at the GFS 12Z, hot off the presses, we put this into motion and let's see where it is on its Arctic air. Again, we're looking at 5,000 feet, largely stays east of the Rockies. Some of this tries to leak out into central BC and eastern Washington. It's not a lot. It would bring, again, some dry conditions. You can see the ridge very close to the coastline here. We need this ridging a bit further back to the west to allow for that Arctic air to spill back down into the region. And you can see it's just too close. The ridge axis keeps us largely east of the Rocky Mountains. And I mean, look at that Arctic air blast all the way down across central portions of the USA. At least somebody's getting in on this action here. You know, I'm always rooting for Arctic air. I know not everybody loves it here, but yeah, you can see what the models are showing. Now, if we take a look at about 300 millibars, this is about 30,000 feet up in the atmosphere. You got the European Artificial Intelligence versus the GFS on the right. So there's the North Pole. Where are we? There's Greenland, there's Washington, there's Hawaiian Islands, there's Japan over here, for example. So if we scroll off in towards the next few days, this is going to be the ridge amplifying there. You can see it as we go on into about Friday. And the GFS, again, further to the east with that cold north flow locking up that Arctic air, mainly keeping it off to the east, at least a better upper level support. Some of that does leak out underneath that, though, into the region. But you can see the differences between the European Artificial Intelligence and the GFS in the placement of that jet stream at 30,000 feet. But again, the ridge axis just too close, it looks like, to really allow for the good stuff to get into the Pacific Northwest. However, then the artificial intelligence wants to continue to bring some chance of that as we go through the extended, but way too far out. GFS locks that way up further north into Canada and keeps the next one kind of moving down across some of the Canada USA border there. So if we take a look at the GFS ensemble mean, just doing our due diligence here, and we take a look at, actually, let me update that. Let's see how far out we can go on the 12Z run. This is running as we speak. Again, 5,000 feet, and you can see the bulk of that air staying east, but some of that trying to leak out here. So we may be in for some of that dry, brisk, cold overnight lows here for the Pacific Northwest, but not looking at much in the way of lower elevation snowfall. And this goes all the way out towards, where are we going? January 23rd at this point. But yeah, you can see Arctic air blast here for portions of Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, Texas, and places east, while we just get skirted with some of that trying to leak out back over us, but not enough to bring a lower elevation snow event. If we take a look here at 500 millibar heights with corresponding mean sea level pressure. So we're going to scroll out here and we're going to take a look. There's that polar lobe right there. You can see this is just too far off to the east there. We don't generate any kind of surface cyclogenesis here that would help us out. But you can see there is a decent pressure gradient on the European there for some cooler air getting out into British Columbia. So it would be a colder solution than what the GFS is showing. And then if we scroll out a bit further, look at this, then it wants to throw this polar lobe a little bit closer here. Who knows? We'll have to just wait and see on that. But still, not perfect for lower elevation snow. Now here we go with the European 12Z run. We're going to take a look at this because why not? It's running as we speak. There's the 12Z. I'm going to compare it to the 0Z, which was colder. And actually, let me put that back in there. There we go. Okay, so we put this into motion, and let's see what has changed. Here we go with the ridge amplification. It's going to come after that one there. Polar lobe, you can see it sliding down. Fairly similar here, but again, too far to the east there to bring us a lower elevation snowfall event. And then we look off into the future, and you can see that last night's run, look at this. This would have been very interesting. You can see the low pressure system there, the polar lobe reaching out far enough to develop some of the cyclogenesis. But then you look at this morning's, it's completely taken that away. And you can see high pressure much closer to the coastline. So you can see some of the issues of this here. But again, largely looks like these are staying mostly off to the east there. That is not a good look for Arctic air lovers into western British Columbia, Washington, or Oregon on this morning's European model. And if we take a look here on the artificial intelligence, I'm just going to kind of show you here. The storm track pointed north. I mean, look at not much precipitation to speak of. There goes some Arctic air off to the east. It's not really generating much here across the region. We scroll off all the way 300 hours out. Maybe another system there, but that's associated with that polar lobe itself. Not a lot of precipitation with that system. So anyway, yeah, we are going to be running a deficit here, it looks like, as we go towards the end of January for sure. 2 meter temperature, and this is in Celsius. So the thing to know about this is if you look at that white line there, that is 0. So you're freezing and below if you're behind that white line. And you can see some of the chilly overnight lows as we would go on in through the upcoming period here. But again, the daytime temperature is not too crazy as that Arctic air, again, largely stays east, but some of it does make its way down into eastern Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia. Now, something I like to look at here, in fact, let me just make this bigger. We're going to go to North America, and maybe this will show it. Does it? Yes, it does. So I like to show the characteristics of the air mass here. So you can kind of see that Arctic air move down. And again, one of the main characteristics of an Arctic air mass is just how dry it is. And you can just see this plunging down across the United States there. So kind of interesting watching that Arctic air move around, and then maybe some in the extended forecast there. But nothing to get too excited about just yet. Quileute Airport, this is yesterday afternoon's European. You can see the control run kind of doing its own thing versus the mean, which shows a little bit of a cool down here. But again, no big Arctic air blast. Bellingham, something similar we've been looking at here, but you can see very few of these solutions, even last night, show extremely cold, bitter Arctic air moving down into the region. Spokane, better chance for some of that Arctic air moving down in here, but again, it's going to probably be lower level and, bringing some chilly temperatures here, but again, not a big snowmaker as of right now, but we'll continue to watch it. Things can still change. Avalanche.org, check before you go. You can see some of the Oregon Cascades, or you can click on these individual locations and click on Mount Hood and get the forecast. It'll talk about snow levels and what you can look for there, and all kinds of good stuff. Problem number 1 forecast discussion, so check that before you go. 6 to 10 day, they've kind of put this below normal here now as we go through the 16th and 20th. They may have to back up on that and kind of push it off to the east a little bit more, but we'll see how that goes. West Coast, that should be no surprise, below normal precipitation, and this makes sense, of course, with some Arctic air moving down across central portions of the country. That goes through January 24th, and again, the below normal signal for precipitation here on the West Coast. Now, if we take a look way off into the extended forecast, this is the European, the weeklies here, and this is the ensemble mean. So if we scroll off in towards the second half of January, you see we do get some of this ridging, and that's where you want to see it, further back across the Pacific Ocean, and you can see maybe some lower than normal heights here as we go on into early February. So there's always a chance that maybe we'll get some early February snow. At least the signal is there for it. It's continuously showing it. Are things going to line up right? Who knows at this point? But yeah, you can see it all the way on through the mid portion of February. We can still get snow in February here into the lower elevations, no problem. Taking a look at the 30-day precipitation anomaly, though, on the same thing, though, look at this as we go all the way. What is this? We're going on through early February, and you can clearly see without that warm, moist southwest flow, we're going to be running that deficit here up and down the west coast of North America as far as precipitation is concerned. So anyway, what else? We'll continue to check back tomorrow. There's always a chance this pattern can change, so you're just going to want to keep tuning in. But right now, it looks like a close mix with some of it trying to leak out here and a very dry period coming up. But again, we'll check back on that daily. Hope you guys are having a good day. Otherwise, click like and subscribe. We'll do this all again tomorrow, and I will talk to you guys then.